This video is sponsored by you, link to support the channel are in the description. I will never forgive Pepe for taking the limited spot from Mad Jed, and while I believe that the whole Twitter whitewashing racism debacle is really dumb, man, this Egypt-inspired event sure is white woman central, huh? Fortunately, I can rest easy knowing that this entire banner is mid. Pepe is your typical horde killer guard, most notable for the H2R, which makes me about as sturdy as a hammer. While functional and far from bad, Pepe is in a weird spot. Using her as a boss killer is finicky due to her tiny skill tree range, and she's not quite a lane holder because she's too frail to handle some elite enemies. I'm recording this afterwards because I realized I didn't talk about Pepe skill 1 in the original script. It's this odd lessing power creep skill, countering abnormal statuses. I suppose it is situationally useful, but using Lumen with a stronger unit is probably a better idea most of the time. This leaves her as a horde killer for relatively weak enemies or a boss killer for stun vulnerable bosses. Her skill 2 synergizes with her talent, letting you trigger it repeatedly for its extra effects. Its random targeting isn't an issue when dealing with hordes, thanks to her wide splash radius. But when dealing with one high priority target, it can lead to said target receiving a lot less damage by virtue of not being the primary target of the attack if not isolated. Skill 3 is stronger, but kind of a pain to use. The lack of range expansion means you're stuck with one tile. In the big year 2025, when bosses will usually vaporize anything they block, or just not be blockable, this means you truly have only that one tile, and not even Pepe's own. Its main use is cheesing bosses by stun locking them to death, which really limits her options, though stunned vulnerable bosses are more common than you'd think. That said, why bother? Other boss killers can handle any boss and have better range, making them far more versatile. Pepe isn't a bad unit, but she's not a good one either. She's perfectly average, and for a limited banner without any impressive sparkable units either, that just doesn't cut it. Narantuya continues the trend of mediocrity, but unlike Pepe, her kit is really cool. Talent 2 gives her a good amount of survivability, giving herself 35% dodge and every enemy in range a 20% accuracy reduction. In effect, just by existing, she's a better Crown Slayer at her own niche. Skill 1 is her AFK skill, that's about it, use it to quote-unquote lane hold, it's perfectly fine. Skill 2 is weird, it's a strange middle ground between skill 1 and skill 3, I can't really think of a situation where you'd want this skill specifically over the other two outside of IS5, but I'm sure it exists somewhere out there, maybe next to the Silksong release date. Skill 3 solidifies her role as a close range specialist, tossing out 3 projectiles and triggering an AoE when they return. This is her burst damage skill to take care of high priority targets. Normally, having her so close to what could potentially be a boss would be very risky, but her talent 2 makes her dodge about half the time. You shouldn't rely on RNG, but this is good enough. Despite her kit being super cool and having no obvious flaws, the sniper class is a very stacked one, and so Narantuya is faced with a very steep competition which she can't quite stand up to. Unlike Pepe, I'd say that if you don't have any other strong sniper, rolling her isn't a bad idea. However, if you have Ray or Typhon or god forbid La Creatura, you should skip. Papyrus has to be one of the baddest bitches in the game. Mary from Blue Archive looking ass over here is also a perfectly average unit. You may be noticing a pattern with this event. She provides barrier and has a skill to full focus on one unit while also healing adjacent ones. Unfortunately for Sansa's sister, Storm's Alter's event will give us Rose Salt, another welfare 5-star medic which is better in just about every way. However, I have a type, so I'm gonna be using Papyrus instead. Saint Reckoner breaks the trend of perfectly serviceable mediocrity by being straight ass. Summoners are kind of a dog water archetype because the summons take up deployment slots, which means they are in direct competition with every operator in the game that could be taking that deployment slot instead. If you aren't linked, the summon isn't gonna win that competition. Beyond that, Saint Reckoner's summons are also pathetic. Their stats are comparable to 3 stars like Orchid. In effect, you have an Orchid Minecraft farm with him, so avoid. Here's the members, I love you, special thanks to Mr. Lerco, Dion, Zilog, 3D, Bubo, Quill Damage, Maximum Amor, Zephyrinix, Tensilor, Nupol, Otakio, Nordrich, Animula, Magreguera, Nitragaki, Magreguera, Gister, and Chrome Jump, JJF. Monster Gummy, bye!